Good morning. This is Knox County Board of Commissioners meeting on March 13th, 2025. We are honored by the presence of Jenna Hicks, DKMM, which is Delaware, Knox, Marion, Morrow counties solid waste management district. And Jenna's going to talk to us about a couple things that are in the townships and the municipalities' hands and a few other items. So Jenna, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come. As I said before, when I first got here, sorry this didn't happen before our board meeting. Supposed to come, but the ice storm, and I didn't think it would be good to drive. So here today, the main reason I want to give a little bit of background on what we do, how we're funded, that kind of thing. And then we are going through a process for our solid waste plan that we need a resolution passed by the commissioners of each of our counties. So that is, I guess, the main reason why I'm here. But I didn't want you to try to pass a resolution not knowing kind of what you were passing. So I guess a little bit of background on what we do. We're directed by House Bill 592. It was passed in the late 80s, and that said that each county had to become a member of a solid waste district. So back then, our four counties, Delaware, Knox, Marion, decided, hey, let's go together. So we were formed in the late 80s. And part of that House bill, we have to fund programs to keep stuff out of the landfills. So that's our goal. So to do that, we are required to write a solid waste plan. That plan outlines the programs that we're going to do, how we're going to fund it, and does projections on how much recycling that we think we're going to do based on the programs that we're going to implement. So that was written a long time ago. Every year we have to review it and update it. So as you know, we are overseen by a board of directors, which are the commissioners of each of our four counties, which we had our meeting on Tuesday. But we also have a second board, which is our policy committee. And that's the fun committee. Bill is the representative for the commissioners. And that is the committee that helps write the plan every 5 years. So it's a 29-member board with various people. You see on your sheet here, it kind of says who's on the policy committee, but we have various members throughout each county that review everything once a year. And then every 5 years, we update the plan. So that is what we are going through right now. It's an 18-month process outlined in very much detail by the state of deadlines that we have to meet. It culminates with the ratification of the plan, and that is where we're at now. So we ask every township, city, village, and commissioner's offices to pass the plan, pass a formal resolution to pass the plan. So that works out to be like 94 or 92, I can't remember, locations that we're asking to pass this plan. So I reported at our board meeting kind of where we were at with each of those counties. And I think Bill has the sheet there. I did not bring that with me, but as we stand right now, we have met our minimum requirement. So we have to have enough municipalities pass it that covers 60% of our district population. And then the majority of our largest cities and the majority of the commissioner's offices. So we have met all of that, but I'm still looking to get as much approval as we can. So hopefully you guys will approve it as well. So that plan, we have to talk about how we fund what we're going to do. So we are funded not through property taxes or tax dollars, but we're funded through agreements that we have with landfills and transfer stations throughout the state. So we have agreements with 42 of those that accept our waste, our trash from our four counties, and they agree to pay us a fee per ton. So right now that fee is $6. And that allows us to do our current programs. Through this process of writing the plan, we have to forecast out 15 years, which is a little bit ridiculous. But through that process, we have found that we're at the point now that we need to increase that fee. We haven't increased our fee since 2012. And if we don't do that now, we're gonna be at the point where we're gonna have to cut programs. So part of this plan would increase our fee to $7.50, which will allow us to continue current and then also add and upgrade some of our things. So it's kind of at the bottom of that little fact sheet there, but so some of our current programs, we have our education program. So I'm sure you guys know Matt Bacher. So we contract with each of our 4 counties for a full-time educator. The way I view that is the go-to person in each county. We're always available to answer calls and stuff, but we're kind of more of the administrative background. I like to be in the background. They do the education, answer questions, that kind of stuff. So we fund that in each county. We have a tire bin at the county highway department where any township or whomever finds tires along public areas, so like along roadways, parks, public areas, those tires can be placed in that bin. We used to fund that program, but we applied for state funding. The state now funds that, but we have to call in the tire bins when they're full and stuff. So we kind of oversee that. But since we don't fund that program, we were able to use those funds to start a municipal tire grant. So that is where city, village, township can apply to us to hold a local tire collection for their residents. So we used to do tire collections. I think our last one was in 2019. So it's a big Saturday event. People bring their tires. What we found is we were getting a lot of the small tire shops instead of residents that maybe have a couple tires that they didn't turn in when they got new tires. So at that point, we stopped doing our programs and we worked towards educating those tire shops. Don't bring them to us. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. And we educated them on, okay, you need to work with a tire recycling facility. They'll give you a bin, you fill it, they'll come get it. That's what you use that like $4 a tire fee that everybody gets charged to do. So we went that route. So we haven't had those large Saturday events since 2019. So we brought back, I think it was in 2021, this municipal tire grant, and it's been hugely successful. I guess the city of Mount Vernon has done it. Last year was their first one, and it was, as Jason said, maybe too successful. It was.
And I would say, I was gonna ask, so did they reapply? Because I
Yes.
think last week I signed an MOU with the city to let them use the fairgrounds for the event. They used it last year. So they
Yeah.
asked us, and I'm like, basically I talk to the fair board first.
Yeah.
If they're good, then
Yeah.
I'll sign the MOU, and the fair
Yeah.
board signed off and they were fine, so.
Yeah.
And that event is March 29th.
Yes, and the thing that we offered new this year, which I mentioned at our board meeting, is instead of using 40-yard roll-offs, that works fine for townships, but when you're working with a larger city, they had, I think last year, 6 or 7 40-yard, that's a very inefficient way to collect those tires. So this year they are getting 2 semi trucks. So it will cost less to collect the same amount of tires. So we're excited to see how that goes. So that's one program that
And
we
the fair
offer.
board was very gracious about that last year, and this year, their only concern was make sure, they asked the city when the event's over.
We don't want
get
new tires.
Yeah, we don't want stuff sitting around, get everything out of there, so I think the city was able to take care of that last year, and that's why the fair board re-signed this year to do that.
Yeah. Another thing that we currently do is provide technical assistance to businesses and industry. So I know Matt, last year, the one thing that pops in my mind, he worked with Geldwin and went in and did kind of a waste assessment and said, hey, if you guys did this or this, you could reduce your waste. And so we do provide that service. We also fund our health departments to do enforcement and abatement. So they are all approved by EPA to visit and make sure that any transfer station, landfill, compost site, that kind of thing that's licensed by the state, make sure that they're doing it correctly, meeting all the guidelines. So they do quarterly checks unless something is wrong. They might go out and check things a little more regular to make sure it's getting abated. They also, part of our funding is to work with residents who maybe have an accumulation of trash or something that's, their neighbor calls the health department, says, my neighbor has a whole bunch of trash sitting on their front porch, it smells, there's rodents, we need help. So they will go out and try to work with that homeowner to get it cleaned
So
up.
in the meeting we had Tuesday,
Mhm.
did you not mention that some of this new money might go to our health department?
Yes. So we currently, not every solid waste district funds their health departments. We do, but it's put into the budget bill that possibly some state money might be able to go to fund that if it's approved as it's being proposed.
Thank you.
So we also do our hazardous waste and electronics collection. So I don't know if you're familiar, we work with Opportunity Knox. They do, they staff a hazardous waste facility from April through September by appointment. And they oversee that and allow us to use their facility there. So that has been a welcomed facility there. We also kind of help fund a little bit of the Gambier electronics collection as well. So those are kind of like the main things that we do. And then with our new funding, our increased funding, we're going to be able to bring back Saturday collections for our chemicals and electronics, because right now we just do it on Wednesdays. So people who work, they're not going to be able to attend those as easily. So we're going to add back a Saturday event because those are super expensive. Hazardous waste, you can collect 6 tons of material throughout the year, and it's like almost $20,000. So it's really expensive, but that's like one of the main calls that we get. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide an outlet for that. We want to be able to provide some grant funding for waste audits. So like if Matt or the educators are working with a business and they recommend doing something, we might be able to fund a little bit of implementing that. We want to be able to fund some open dumping or tire dumps by working with our health departments. If they've tried to get the homeowner to clean up a property and it's not going anywhere, maybe the person passed away or it's just not going anywhere, we would be able to maybe put some funding towards getting those sites cleaned up. And then in the past, we've had a recycling grant program for a few years, and then the funding was used that was allotted for that. So we're going to bring that funding back. What that is for any community that has curbside recycling or any recycling facility to make improvements, upgrades, or even start a new curbside program. So those are all the things that we're looking to either upgrade or bring back with that increased fee. So I don't know if there's any questions. I guess the last thing that I was gonna mention on that is our recycling drop-off program. I should have mentioned that before. That's our number one. That's our number one cost in our district and probably our highest priority of something that we would do. So we do have here in Knox County, we have 15 locations with 92 bins. We contract with Rumpke for that service. Across our 4 counties, that's $1.1 million that we fund for that. So that's a huge chunk of our budget. Happy to say that Knox County's drop-off program brings in the highest tonnage on the drop-off program across our 4 counties. So that's great that everybody here does so great with that. Our education program is our 2nd largest, and then our health departments are our 3rd largest funding, and then the compost facilities. So those are kind of like the top 4 things that we fund. So I just want to give the background. I know, I don't think a resolution is ready for this meeting, but at a future meeting, hopefully you guys will pass. So I can answer any questions because I know that was one thing, but if there's
Yeah,
no
so
questions.
I thought I'd go over you gave us a sheet on Tuesday of those who had ratified the new solid waste plan. But I thought I'd mention those who haven't.
Oh,
So
okay.
those that might be watching this will
Yeah.
get after the representatives to at least talk about
I
it.
will say, I haven't had confirmation. Some of those, maybe it's gonna be on an agenda and they just haven't told me,
Yes.
but so.
Yeah, you had several that are on. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do ones that just did blank. So
Mhm.
Village of Brinkhaven. I figured I could talk to them. Village of Martinsburg. Berlin Township, I talked to JT yesterday. I talked to Pleasant Township, Jim Hughes yesterday, so he was going to check that. I'll check in with Monroe Township since they needed to revote. Not sure what that means.
It was a early vote, so it happened before the January 13th. It was like 2 days earlier or something. I'm like,
Well,
if
yeah,
it's something that you
okay.
could redo.
Yeah, I think I was at that meeting and I said, well, you could date it and the date that is good. But anyway, let's see, Wayne Township, we need to have information for them. Miller Township, Liberty Township, and I think you got everyone else on there said yes, or it's on their agenda, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's been very helpful. This is my second time going through it, and I will say it was a little, I learned from the first go around. And so we're a 2-person office, and trying to get to 92 places just isn't gonna work. So we try to reach out to those. Some of them, they already know us, they know what we do. Yep, we'll put it on our agenda. We don't have to go. But Matt was very helpful. All the educators were helpful, but Matt went to, I think, 3 or 4 meetings. He was very happy to do that just because it helps him make the connection with those folks too. And so it was very good. I think we're in a good spot. And I'm ready to be done with it.
Well, and I am ready to be done with it
Yes.
too. I want to give the dates for the tires. We did talk about the out to Knox County Fairgrounds, March 29th. I don't see hours for this. Do we know what the hours are?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
And then also on May 17th, Milford Township is going to be doing a collection. Don't have the time for that, but so March 29th and May 17th, tire collection. And then you talked about the hazardous waste. And then we here at the Knox County Service Center, we're going to have a residential paper shredding time. And that's May 10th. So that's coming up quickly. And that's only for 2 hours, 9:30 to 11:30. And we usually have, or it says until the truck is full. So if you're coming during those 2 hours, again, May 10th, 9:30 to 11:30 for paper shredding. Those are events there. But Jenna and Cheryl do a great job keeping us on task. And yeah.
What was the hazardous waste one?
It's the 2nd and 4th. Am I saying that right? Because I get it confused. 2nd and 4th Wednesdays by appointment. So they would call our office and we
Just
would schedule.
consistently.
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you had that in your packet on
Right,
Tuesday.
Yeah.
good.
Any questions? It's a little background.
Maybe for people to know, what is all considered hazardous waste?
Yeah, so any kind of, basically we get people that call, hey, I'm cleaning out my garage. I found, old gasoline, fertilizers, chemicals to get rid of the bugs, insecticides, that kind of stuff. Cleaners, we will take those, but pretty much anything that you're cleaning out and you think, ooh, I don't know what I should do that. So flammables, it'll say flammable on it, that kind of thing. So pretty much
Is it
any
paint?
random. So propane tanks are one that we do take. That's a big one that we get, those little small ones especially, but latex paint, we encourage folks to dry that out with kitty litter, floor dry, paint hardener from the store. Latex paint is not hazardous. So the only thing you have to do with that is just make sure it's not liquid. So once it's fully hardened in the can, you leave the lid off and you can put it in with your regular trash. We do take 10 cans of it at our hazardous waste. There are a lot of people who just don't want to deal with it. So we do it as a convenience, so they can bring 10 cans of the latex paint. Oil-based paints or any kind of stains, we definitely will take those. It is $1 a pound, so we do weigh everything. It's $1 a pound. But it's been very successful here in Knox County. We rolled this program out, I want to say 2021. And we were full, all of our appointments were full. We were scheduling out pretty far. And I think now we're at the point, it's kind of dwindled off. So we might be able to in the future get rid of the appointments and just let people, hey, come anytime during this time. But right now we're still working on the appointments. just so we're not getting overwhelmed out there. Our Saturday events, when we used to have those, people would wait in line for over an hour to try to get rid of their stuff. So this was our way of, okay, let's make it a little bit more regular. So the people that can make it during the week will siphon off from those Saturday folks. And then the people that need Saturdays, you know, they hopefully won't have to wait in an hour-long line. So it's kind of our thinking behind it,
Yeah.
so.
And would you do a refresher course as to what are appropriate things to go into our recycling bins and what is not? I know Apple Valley, we had some drywall in there one time and a shower stall and
Yes.
stuff like that, which are not
Yes.
recyclables in our bins.
Yeah, yeah. So, for any kind of curbside here in the county, whether it's our drop boxes in the townships or at an Opportunity Knox, or in any kind of curbside program, any type of paper, if you can rip it, it can go in there as long as it's paper-based. Cardboard, that's a big one. That's what we mostly get in our bins when we've done audits through Rumpke. The big thing with that, flatten the boxes. If you don't flatten the boxes, it takes up all the room and then we have overflow issues. So that's a huge thing. Anybody listening out there, please flatten your boxes before putting them in the bins. Any kind of soup or beverage container that are metal, those can go in. And then plastics are the ones where it gets a little bit more difficult. Rumpke has recently added new things to it. So they typically go by shape. So it's not by the number on the container or the recycling symbol on the container. That means nothing here. Don't look at those. It is bottles, jugs. So, you know, laundry detergent, milk jugs, your water bottles, soda bottles, that kind of thing. So tubs. So if you have a butter tub, a yogurt tub, cottage cheese, those things can go in there now.
And they should rinse them out before they
Rinse
put
them
in.
out, yeah, rinse them out. They don't have to be sparkling clean, but try to rinse out the residue in there. And then the newest thing that has been added are what we call clamshells. So those containers that strawberries come in, some lettuce, my favorite lettuce that I have to have comes in them. Those can now go into the recycling bin. So Rumpke has started adding more and more things. The thing that we were hoping Rumpke would do is update the stickers on the front of the bins, because those newer materials are not listed on the bins yet. But so it really goes by shape. So
And we
bottles,
don't,
jugs,
we don't
tubs.
do grocery bags, right?
Grocery bags should not, recycling should be put in loose. So no bags. We don't want any bags, even if it's a clear bag. If you collect it at home in a trash can with a, you know, a liner in it, when you take it to the recycling bin, dump it out. Don't just put the whole bag in there. A lot of times that will get tossed as trash at the recycling facility. We are lucky here in Central Ohio that all of our recycling through our 4 counties ultimately ends up down at Rumpke. And they built, I think it opened last year, a like $8 million recycling facility down in Columbus. I feel very confident that all of our material does get recycled. I know a lot of times people are, oh, I read that stuff is going in the trash, and things are a little bit different along the coasts as opposed to here. Rumpke, they have like 99% of their material, it's all local. So we are very blessed to be able to work with Rumpke and have local markets. So we're kind of insulated from a lot of the larger.
Bottle caps, milk caps.
Yeah, so caps, just if they're on, if you reattach them to the bottle, like a water bottle, if you reattach the lid, it will get recycled. If it is just thrown in as a bottle cap, it does not get recycled. So so the facility where our stuff goes, it's all mechanical. So they do have a few people there kind of picking little things out here or there, but it's all mechanical. So if I think it's a puff of air maybe. So all the material just gets dumped on the conveyor belt and it goes up mixed. And then, you know, they'll have I don't know the technical terms, but a rotated
An auger or something.
Yeah, something, and it flips all the paper out, so the paper gets fluffed up and then it goes on this conveyor belt down that way and everything else continues. And I think with plastic bottles, it's an optical eye, so they train it to bottles, jugs, tubs. So when it sees it, a little puff of air and shoots it out to the side. It's crazy how fast this all goes. You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. So it's not trained to see little tiny caps. So those would just stay on the conveyor belt. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So
And then
that's what it's
and now that, you know, out of Knox, they're not taking paper to shred anymore. That
Yeah.
then cannot go in the bins. I think there was some discussion about if it would go in a clear bag, it could go in the bins. Should it not go in the bins?
Yeah, so we tell people when they call, like, we don't put this on any kind of our educational flyer. You can't put all the little details. So when somebody calls, we will tell them that is literally the only thing that you should put in a plastic bag, and it has to be a clear plastic bag so that the people working there, oh, that has shredded paper in it.
Hmm.
The problem is if people don't put it in a bag and they just dump shredded paper in our bins, then it looks like a confetti party when Rumpke comes and empties it. So shredded paper is great, and I'm sad that Opportunity Knox isn't doing it anymore. But because it can be quite an issue if it's not bagged properly. So that's the only time, clear plastic bag for shredded paper. Otherwise,
And the reason why they're not doing that, our machine is not
Yeah.
any good and it's
Yeah.
expensive to replace
Yeah.
it. And
yeah,
no funds to do
Yeah.
that, and plus not always the manpower out there
Yeah.
to do that.
yeah. A lot of people with paper shredding, they want to see it shredded.
Right.
So they want somebody to be there. Which for your paper shredding day, I don't know the name of the company off the top of my head, but I mean, I
Yeah.
think they do shred it on site.
Yes, they do.
So that's.
Yeah, and you
important.
can bring boxes and they'll
Yeah.
take care of all that. Good, well, thank you,
Yeah,
Jen.
thanks for
Janet,
having me.
thank you.
I'll work with Penny to hopefully come up with a resolution that can be brought for.
So don't use the one that you.
I mean, you can, that's one that we provided everybody. It can be changed, updated, however anybody likes. But we provided that with all the mailings that we did.
Yes,
So
yeah, makes it.
whatever
simple.
Chip wants. That is good.
Yeah.
And then I will work with Jason and Matt on the compost bids.
Yes,
We did get those out yesterday. And hopefully it's kind of a quick turnaround, but hopefully we'll be able to have more information for you guys.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, and then there'll be some decisions that have to be made based on that, but
yeah, good.
anyway. You have my contact information. If you have any questions, whatever, email, give us a call, Cheryl or I, so.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you so much.
She's good.
Have a good day.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Good, how are you guys?
We're good.
Good.
So we have Laura Webster with us from 911. Gonna update us with a lot of great information, I'm sure.
It's great. Our calls for the month of February are down just a little. February is a shorter month, so that's not a huge surprise. Our peak day for 911 was Monday, and also for the non-emergency calls Monday. The peak time for 911 was 10 in the morning. And the non-emergency calls was 2 in the afternoon, so. The weather's getting warmer and calls are reflecting that at the moment. It's been busier, so. That's always interesting in the spring and summertime months, but other than that, our new trainees have completed and passed their public safety telecommunicator class. So they will now be moving on to that emergency medical dispatch to get instruction on how to do that. They'll be doing that, I believe, at the end of this month. Nicole will be teaching it, so. I shouldn't say currently now because they just completed it, but the batteries have been replaced in our uninterrupted power supply. Those last about 5 years. And then at that time, we will need to look into replacing that system we currently have because it's going out of date, so. That system will have to be replaced, but they're all good to go, so should we lose power, we won't, because that keeps us up and running until the generator kicks in. April 13th through the 19th is National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. And for you two that don't know what all goes on down there for that week, it's quite the celebration. That week is to honor our public safety telecommunicators. It's a national week, it's done nationwide, for their commitment, service, and sacrifice. And we usually plan theme days, games throughout the week. Our public safety partners will bring in food and other items at times, and then there are also awards given that week for the year of 2024. The main one being Dispatcher of the Year. So, and the Dispatcher of the Year award is voted on by their peers. All other awards are given out by myself, but we have some fun ones and just some for their good work. So it's always a great morale boosting week for them down there, and we enjoy it. We have a lot of fun. So if you're on our Facebook page, you'll see pictures throughout the week during that week. So
Well, so on your training, this is not off-site training for the, they're gonna be down in the center and they're learning things on that.
it's in our training room.
Yeah.
For this specific training, the one they just had and the next one coming up. But Nicole, our training coordinator, and all of our supervisors are certified instructors for that. And so it is taught on site.
So do they ever just sit beside another dispatcher down there as part of?
That's the
training?
main part of their training,
Okay.
in the seat. Yep.
Good.
Yes, so, and it's hard during that training time, to come across every kind of call that you may handle, but they're pretty prepared for it as far as the classes that they go through, and just hearing other dispatchers talk, or their trainer may say, hey, you may get this type of call. But we also have the software where those guide cards are in there for each type of incident, and that will instruct them on questions that need to be asked. So that's very helpful for them. And then it just transfers right into our CAD system from that system. So it's pretty seamless.
Laura, how, did we have any issues that had to be, I know we have a kind of a core group when we have calls that are of a certain nature, and I know with the murder here in town last week, does the dispatchers okay that handled that call, and if we need to activate that team in any way to work with them?
We haven't had to activate that team. The dispatcher that actually handled the call seems to be doing okay. Unfortunately, we did have two dispatchers that in their personal lives knew that person. So, but I always remind them of our employee assistance plan and other resources too that they can reach out to. So, both of those dispatchers are back to work. So, but, and you know, other calls never quit coming in. They had a bad one last night. So, and one of those dispatchers happened to be working for that one and took the call, but yeah, so. That's why we have those things in place for them.
Laura, your April 13th to the 19th, is there a good day that we might, or I might come down and visit and see what's going on with your awards or something like that?
Well, any day, I can let you know when we're doing dispatcher of the year.
Yeah, cause normally you'll do a resolution for
Yes.
dispatcher of the year
Yeah.
once Laura gets us the info, and then you'll present that to the dispatcher, and we can do that here, or we can go down there and do that.
Yes. And then, like I said, there's the different theme days. So I can give you a list and you can see which one may be
Yeah,
more
sure, that'd be
interesting
great.
than the other. They,
You could dress up for the theme day.
yes, maybe you could do that.
I am a theme kind of guy.
Well, there's pajama day, so choose wisely.
Oh, please. Larry.
They usually have something like that. They'll have maybe superhero, dress up as your, favorite superhero. We always usually have thin gold line because the gold line represents dispatch. So they'll wear their t-shirts or whatever with that. Sports day where they'll wear their favorite sports jerseys and that type of thing. So yeah, we try to come up. Mismatch day, they have that too sometimes. So that one's interesting.
So sports day is just Buckeyes and Browns, right?
Well, I would be okay with that. but, there are 20 of them down there, so everyone's a little different.
Yeah, so February CAD calls were 3,385, so I think you mentioned that was a little bit less.
Yes, January was 3,592, so a couple hundred. And again, it's a shorter month, but and it was pretty cold in February.
Yeah, it was.
You'd be surprised, yes, how much the weather sometimes can dictate call volume.
Yeah, and it had 4,166 non-emergency calls. So
Mhm,
yeah, a lot of phone calls.
They do.
And when will we have it that we can text to 911?
So the state is still working on their SENet, and they have some counties in like test mode. Some counties have already switched over because they had them in the first round of the test mode. I am actually waiting on a quote from Central Square, our provider for our phone software. Those servers are also coming to the end of life. So
So get ready with my budget. Is that what you're
yes.
telling me?
Please get ready for your, so I am waiting on a quote from them, and I asked for a couple different options. They have one that would be the cloud, which is gonna cost a little more on the front end, but not really on the back end, because eventually that is what we're gonna have to go to.
Have you talked to
So,
Kyle about these yet?
no, I'm waiting
Okay.
for that quote, and then I'm gonna
Cause I
take,
think he prefers the cloud. Based
Yes.
stuff is probably what we would convert to, but
Right.
we can talk to him about that once you get pricing.
yes, so I did ask for both, just, so we could see that comparison, but, and in that, the piece also would be in there for the text to 911. So that will be coming, I think in the next year, we'll probably have that up and off the ground.
Have you heard, Lord, I mean, we've talked about that for the last couple of years. I know we decided kind of to let the state
waiting.
take the lead on that. But in the counties like Delaware does that get as much use as you would think that it gets?
No,
The
No.
text 911.
right. It does not. And really, that's good, because it should only be used in situations of where maybe someone's hearing impaired, or they're in a situation where they can't speak. Maybe the suspect is there, or the threat is there, and so texting is easier for them than calling us. But those are really the only times it should be used, because it's a much quicker voice-to-voice conversation.
Mhm. Yeah,
But-
especially be able to clarify what really is going on.
Mhm. Yes, well, and it also helps the dispatcher when you can hear the tone and inflection in their voice, those are cues, so. You can't hear that in text, so.
Yeah.
It works better that way too, but I'm excited kind of for it, just so we have that option there, but. There are still the TDD machines, which our phones are capable of that if someone called in on one. Last time I knew, there were very few of those in the county that people had. And again, that's because most people use text communication, so. So I am excited for it, but no, I don't think it's going to be highly used. At first, maybe, but other than that, no. Any other questions?
None for me, Laura.
No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Laura.
Laura.
Yes, you guys been enjoying this beautiful weather?
Yes.
We're in here. No.
Well,
Just walking to the car back. and like,
when we leave, Bill,
Okay,
it's great dog walking weather.
Okay, good to know.
Great, but
So
Laura,
everyone go
Dog
out and
walk.
get a dog.
mm,
If you don't have a dog, go get a dog so you can walk.
Well, you should go to Knox County Animal Shelter to get
That's
a
right.
dog, that's where my kids from. You guys.
Thank you.
Well, Bill, if you'd like, we could do the resolution.
Yes, let's do some
Take a short
resolutions.
break, and then Cameron and Rob will be here at 11.
Oh, Rob's out
Rob's
there.
out there.
Yeah. But we'll wait for Cameron. Okay, so we have approved the wastewater contract amendment with the city of Mount Vernon for the purpose of not assessing service availability fees to any properties on Fairgrounds Road.
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Seconded.
Barry was involved in that.
yeah. this was
Yes, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then just for clarification, for those who may not know what this assessing service availability fees, when the city went to put together the water and sewer lines on Fairgrounds roads, we wanted to make sure that the current township residents were not going to be charged any fees for hooking up if they desired to do that. So that's what these contracts are about.
So the next one is for potable water contract amendment for the city of Mount Vernon for the purpose of not assessing service availability fees to properties on Fairgrounds Road.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those favors say aye. Aye.
Okay, well, these are gonna be a lot here. We'll go down them as quickly as possible, but these are all related to the senior levy. So you approved the award amounts on Tuesday. Now we're doing the actual contract. So the first one is to approve the senior levy agreement with the Center of Hope, Knox County for $52,500.
Take a motion.
Motion to approve.
I second it.
And those favors say aye. Aye.
Next we have is the senior levy agreement with the Centerburg Senior Services Center for $207,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And those favors say aye.
Aye.
And we have the senior levy agreement with the Fredericktown Senior Activity Center for $60,000.
Motion to approve.
I second it.
Those favors say aye.
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 And then we have to approve the senior levy agreement with the Knox County Department of Job and Family Services Adult Protective Service Division. And this is for $125,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those favors say aye.
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 We have the senior levy agreement with the Knox County Task Force for older adults for $10,000.
Motion to approve.
I second it.
Those favors say aye.
The senior levy agreement with the Knox County Health Planning Partnership, Senior Health and Wellness for $65,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And those favors say aye.
And then we have approved the Knox County Senior Levy Agreement with the Sanctuary Community Action for $105,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We approved the Knox County Senior Service Levy Agreement with the Station Break for $559,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
And then we have the levy agreement with the United Way of Knox County, Ohio for $10,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And those favors say aye.
Aye.
And then the last one is the senior levy agreement with the YMCA of Mount Vernon for $10,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then I'm gonna go ahead and pass down the bills so we can get those to the auditor's office and the bill ready to transfer as well. On.
Take care of our seniors.
Thank you. So we're back and ready to talk about ditches in Knox County. So Rob Clendenny and Cameron Keaton are here with us, and they're going to get us schooled up on the ditches in Knox County.
Yeah, so a couple things. I've got a little, just a real brief agenda there for you to go through, which is this sheet. And then this book really is, as we go through things, this isn't relative to our discussions today, but this is the county ditch record up till about 1923. It's interesting to look at, and it gives us a little bit of context, because what we're really here to talk to you about today is maintenance of the current ditch projects that we have, and that the county commissioners and the county engineer have some maintenance responsibility for. You don't have any of that responsibility for these. And that is the context in the discussion, because there are projects in this book, the ability for private landowners to petition the county engineers to have drainage projects installed is longstanding, early, mid-1800s, probably. And the process then for construction of improvements was very much the same as it is today. I mean, we've added a few things as far as hoops to jump through and procedural issues, but really it's very much the same process. The one thing that is very different today from the ditches that were constructed in the era of this book is that now you have a mandatory maintenance assessment procedure that you go through, so that once you construct an improvement, there is a fund that is developed that it's a tax assessment on the properties that benefit. And that sticks with that project then in perpetuity. So there's always some amount of money there to maintain that long term. There are projects in this book that were built and rebuilt through the commissioner's tax assessment process, I think 3 times. And we've had projects since I started in this position that were proposed for construction, which were stuff that were originally done back in this book. And so we'll go through that just real quickly here before we get, I guess, into the meat and the potatoes.
Are any of those ditches that are in there part of the ditches we still review today?
Not specifically, but these that were 2 of the ditches that we review today do outlet directly into stuff that was part of this book. So yeah, so they're all kind of tied together.
And what year is this book?
I think the latest petition in here is 1923, and I think the earliest one was 1896 or something like that. So 1884, I'm sorry, September of 1884 is the first one in this book. So, and there are not, I mean, it's not full by any means, you know, so. And Cameron can jump in whenever here too.
I'll just chime in. Rob's done a lot of the legwork on this. Unfortunately, as he will cover as you go through here, there's a section that deals with soil and water, and there's a section that deals with the county engineer. I think the majority of the ditches we have are probably might have started through soil and water, but then got turned over.
I think
to
we've
county
got one of
engineer
each.
or something like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I think most of the stuff now is falling under the county engineer's responsibility and what we're following with the sections of the code, that type of thing. So,
Yeah, so as Cameron alluded, there are 2 basic processes that a landowner can use to petition for a drainage improvement. He can petition the county engineer. That's section 6131 of the Ohio Revised Code. And, you know, that's fairly well spelled out. You know, it lists all of the things that the landowner or a group of landowners has to do to petition the commissioners for a drainage improvement. And then it talked about step by step what the commissioners have to do in terms of hearings and deciding on whether or not that project is going to be built. So that's 6131. There's also 94019, which is still a current section of the revised code. That is the conservation works of improvement section that Cameron alluded to. That gives private landowners the ability to petition the Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Supervisors to basically do the same thing. So they could petition the district to build a drainage improvement, or they can petition the county engineers to do a drainage improvement. Until 2021 was the last set of updates to the ditch law. Until that time, the process to petition the Soil and Water Conservation District was, I want to say, it was much more simplified than the county commissioners process. When they did that set of revisions to the revised code, the two processes basically would run in parallel now. So they, we've got, if somebody petitions us, then, we jump through all of the same hoops. We have the hearings, we do all the same things that the commissioners would do. The one thing that is a little bit different about the 940 petitions and the 6131 petitions is that if somebody petitions the county Soil and Water Conservation District for that improvement, we're supposed to go out ahead of time and meet with that landowner or that group of landowners and explain to them the whole process. And really, what you're doing is you're explaining to them, okay, this is not free. You're not petitioning the Soil and Water Conservation District to build something for you for free. Everybody that benefits is going to end up paying for this project. And, here's how that's all going to shake out. On the county commissioners, on the 6131 side, they kind of have to find that all out through the hearing process as they go through that. There's a subsection in 6131 that's 613163. That's written agreements. So that's a process by which the landowners can decide, okay, we're just going to build this. It's simpler for us to build this project on our own. And then we're going to petition the county to put it on maintenance. We've got two of those. We have used those for maintenance, long-term maintenance of stormwater facility installation. And the two of them that we have are Cocosing Plantation down on 586 and Sycamore Meadows, which is just south of the Conservation Club there on Sycamore Road 657 at that intersection. That is a process that we should probably, that's a worthwhile process. Some of the homeowner association things for stormwater management just don't seem to work out long term. You end up with nobody having facilities or the wherewithal to take care of the projects. As we have the potential for, development down the road, future development down the road, that's something we should keep in the back of our heads, is that, having developers utilize that process might be a good idea. In those situations, they build all the stormwater infrastructure, they petition the commissioners for long-term maintenance of that, and then there's assessments that Cameron actually decides, who benefits from the project, and the assessments then are tied to those lots for forever.
And that's not something that's new. A lot of the counties that are surrounding us that utilize petition ditches, use them in subdivisions, more urbanized counties, and that's, I think, Delaware counties, All Glaze County, there's Fairfield County. So they address their subdivisions to make sure that they're and it goes as far as maybe even the storm pipe within the subdivision and the catch basins and those types of things. Because a lot of times there again, if you're not in a municipal area in a city, no one's there to maintain this stuff and keep an eye on it. And so this isn't anything that's new for the most part, but it usually is just isolated to that subdivision. It wouldn't necessarily stretch way outside.
So if somebody wants to do a subdivision in the unincorporated areas of Knox County, is this something that is already in like the building code type, for lack of better terms, or structure?
Subdivision
code?
Regulations,
Subdivision regulations is where it needs to be,
but it's
not
not
in there now.
It's not in there.
And this is something that we've brought up a number of times. It's our subdivision regulations need to be updated. We need to be brought up to speed with what the development that we may be seeing in the future and the things that other communities are doing. Just to make sure that we're covered. Otherwise, this stuff just sits there and it goes into disarray and Eventually, the homeowners are unhappy with it. They usually go to the township trustees or whoever owns the road, and it just becomes a big issue.
So those need updated. Cameron.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's been, what, talked about for
A number.
A long time.
Over years with regional planning, it just hasn't gotten.
We would have gotten that done, I think, but COVID set us back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to move forward with that.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, right.
and who would lead that? I mean, we've talked about that. Is that?
Regional planning.
Regional
The
planning.
subdivision regulations come out of regional planning. Rob and I do not hold those documents. We have input into them.
Yeah.
Regional planning
So
office.
this is something that I need to go to Daryl about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we talked about it.
Daryl's aware of it.
Yeah, we've talked about it several committee meetings for.
Yeah.
They would bring a resolution to us and then we would take a resolution. Is that how it works?
They would probably go through, the way it worked the last time is that the planning commission went through the whole process of revising the subdivision regulations, and then they just brought those to the commissioners as a package.
Mhm.
For approval. For
Yeah.
approval.
But back to ditches, a couple of other relevant sections of code were 6133, that's petitions to the commissioners for joint or multi-county ditches. That's been rare for us. We had one of those coming up out of Licking County in the 1990s. There was not any public support for it in Knox County. And as a result, we did not participate in that at that time. In retrospect, probably was a mistake. We might have been, when we look at some of the drainage issues down in the Centerburg area right now and going back up through and around Rich Hill, it would have been an opportunity to provide better drainage in some of those areas. But that's water under the bridge.
No pun intended.
Yeah. In that particular instance, it was important enough to the landowners in Licking County that landowners actually went in and they built that section of it. So if you, and that's the lower part of Otter Fork Creek, the Otter Fork branch of the Licking River. So as you're going out of Croton, down towards the south, out of town there, you go down through the bridge that you go across, that real big drainage ditch that goes right up to the right through there. That's Otter Fork branch of Licking River. That was that project. And so those landowners built that in Licking County, and then they petitioned the commissioners to have that put on, that section of it put on maintenance there, I believe. So, and then 6131 or 6137 deals with establishment of the maintenance funds, which is really what we're here to talk about today. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of what we wanted to talk about today. It allows the commissioners to establish the maintenance funds for each project. It also allows the commissioners to establish a countywide drainage district, which we don't have, but in general, it allows for the establishment of the drainage maintenance funds for each one of these projects. And then it also provides an outline for what happens if those assessments need to be changed over time. They can be reduced. You can have extra people. We could be reviewing projects. Cameron could say, wow, this property is benefiting from this ditch. We didn't assess it originally when it was built. That should really be added on, and here are the reasons for that. So it allows for that to happen, and then it allows for the maintenance fund to be increased over time. That's really what we're looking at right now, is just the need to increase that maintenance fund. We haven't done a maintenance assessment fund increase for either of the two open drainage ditch properties that we've got right now, whether or not our property, but projects that we've got right now since 1994. And inflation has just completely run away from us. We're to the point now where the maintenance fund is capped at 20% of all we're allowed to keep in there is 20% of the original permanent assessment base, unless we increase that. So we've got to increase that base if we want to increase the money that we've got in each assessment fund. And we haven't done that since 1994. we can't do them all at once. We've got 4 projects on maintenance right now and we can't do them all at once. And the reason for that is that the way the code is set up is that you are supposed to use a 6-year anniversary date to make those maintenance assessments, or do those maintenance assessment increases. And so I've got kind of a general overview. This is actually just cut and paste the stuff out of 6131 here. The top of the second page there, our 6-year anniversary dates right now, the way and we would want to make sure of this. Chip and I are pretty sure that we're squared away on North Branch of Fort Creek and Ralphie's ditch, or some of the people traditionally down in that area still call it the Compton ditch. Ralph Compton was the primary landowner there, which is why Ralphie's ditch. So our 6-year anniversary dates, as far as we understand them right now, North Branch of Fort Creek is 2025. That is our biggest project, actually. So important that we kind of jump on that. Compton Ditch, the anniversary date for that will be 2028. Cocosing Plantation, that is subdivision on 586. 2026 will be the anniversary date. We should consider it then. We haven't had to spend a lot of money. That has not been an expensive project to maintain.
And that's partly because the residents, someone down there has been mowing.
Yeah, they take good care of it. They take nice care of it, which cuts down on the long-term maintenance care of it. Yes, that is true. And then Sycamore Meadows, which is a ditch and a drainage tile there in that subdivision. The ditch comes down to the state highway right there. And then there is a drainage tile it's a 12-inch diameter drainage tile that provides pass-through drainage from the bottom of the Conservation Club pond right there on the north side of the road. They're back down to the ditch at the state highway culvert on the lower end.
Hey, Rob, I pulled, just when you get that far, I pulled those cash balances
Mhm.
that we have and the caps on those. I've got those numbers to talk about as we
Okay.
get into each one of those.
Something that's interesting of note, if we don't, so let's just use Cocosing Plantation for an example, because we don't spend a lot of money down there. Once we get to the cap, then each year you guys will make a resolution for continuation of the assessment. So when we're kind of bouncing off of that cap, then that assessment can go off. It still sits there dormant. But, then those landowners are not paying anything into that maintenance fund until, for some reason we have to spend some of that money. So, and ideally, that wouldn't be every year that you would have to spend. Now, in the case of Sycamore Meadows, Ralphie's Ditch, and North Branch of Ford Creek, then yes, we would typically have some annual maintenance that would go along with those, because there is an open ditch involved there. So ideally, we would have either or both mowing, spraying would go on there each year with those projects.
And the spraying is for vegetation or for mosquitoes?
For woody vegetation, generally, so we're looking at drainage projects that we want to be able to maintain as an open drainage ditch. Encroachment of a lot of woody vegetation on that makes it difficult to maintain those over time. So we don't avoid as much of that.
So we're not spraying Roundup, we're not killing all the vegetation on the banks. We actually want to maintain that vegetative growth on there. It stabilizes the banks, that type of stuff. But the woody vegetation could be detrimental to the ditches overall. And from a mowing standpoint, it makes it more difficult to get in there and mow around and maintain and keep track. Now, in these ditches, Rob hasn't really touched on yet, but we also have a lot of field tile that tie into these things too. So we mark the ends of all the field tile. So it's a benefit to the farmers, the residents, excuse me. And we maintain the outlet. So we make sure that they're still flowing and they're still operating like they're supposed to. And Rob and I, we work together. We try to get out once a year and physically drive each one of these, because sometimes we will have some. I think Ford Creek, we've had some erosion issues here and there. We've had to fix some slips or go back in and make some repairs. And that's where we use this money. So anything that we do on there. So maintenance typically is spraying for woody vegetation. and mowing it at least once. It'd be nice to be able to get in there and mow it twice a year. But we try to at least get them all mowed down at least once a year.
So like me educationally, where is Ford Creek?
So if you take, State Route 657, right?
Can you run copies of that?
Off of 36.
Then you don't need to go to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's got them all showing. It's really easy on.
Yeah,
county
that's
map.
fine. You know, if I get a copy of that, we
Yeah,
don't
if you
need to.
pass.
You run copy.
Copy of it?
Yeah, run copy first.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here,
Same
going,
color,
Ford
yeah.
Creek, Ralphie's Creek.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pretty much in the southern part of the county, your township.
yeah, Hilliard Township.
3 out of 4 Hilliard Township.
Okay.
Cause you know, it's flat
Flat
down
down
there,
there,
so.
yeah.
But there's a project in there in
No.
Martinsburg.
Oh,
In
really?
Martinsburg?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's a project that's in there that's south of Martinsburg. It's really.
It's
surprising.
flat down there. I can see that.
Yeah, and as you're going down Centerburg area, you know, there's some pretty deep ditches.
Right.
That's because.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption.
That's okay.
I
Yeah,
just,
that's all right.
I was like, yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, it's the guy.
Brad did the same thing for myself because when Rob started talking on these and I was doing, I'm like, okay, I gotta get a visual here on where it's all.
Well, and
I'm
then you
thinking
got.
of a kid I grew up named Ralphie. I'm like, he never lived in Knox County.
Yeah, well, and we've got, North Branch of Ford Creek, which we have on maintenance. Okay, and then just down the road, I mean, half a mile down the road from North Branch of Ford Creek is Ford Creek proper, which was a county constructed ditch, which is not on maintenance. So, so you've got that going on. So you get to talking to the locals down there and they'll be talking about, okay, well, we need to do some work on Ford Creek. Well, Ford Creek, okay. Is it Ford Creek or North Branch Ford Creek? Because one's on maintenance and one isn't. Yeah.
So if it isn't on maintenance, who's doing it? Local?
The end of it, so that was the problem with this, is that it all fell back on the landowners. And, of course, you remember here, I mean, we're going back here, you were going through World War I and the Great
Oh, yeah.
Depression and, sometimes people didn't have money to maintain the ditches. And so they would just fall into disrepair from either erosion or sedimentation or,
And this year, so each year I get a quote from the company that comes in and sprays woody vegetation. I reach out to these two gentlemen here. Well, this year, we don't have enough money in the fund to do the spraying in those ditches. So we had to pass on that because there's, because of the caps, we don't have enough funding to pay to have the maintenance done in there.
And the last few years, my guys have been out there mowing.
yeah, and we went out.
And we don't necessarily have the proper equipment to do it because our reach arm mowers, some of the ditches, we only have access from one side of the ditch.
Yeah, I was just say, you probably
We
don't have
can't,
equipment
we
or
can't reach,
manpower, really.
yeah, we can't reach all the way across. Yeah, my guys should be fixing roads and working
Yeah,
on bridges. We shouldn't be out mowing ditches.
That's a manpower issue.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, and we went down on Ralphie's ditch. There was some incidental damage to some of the tile outlets and, myself and one of the technicians went down and replaced pipes and erosion guards on tile outlets and. got
so,
that fixed.
so how this all works, and Rob, I don't want to steal your
No,
thunder,
go ahead.
but to kind of boil it down into a nutshell, so how do we get to the point where we have additional funds? We basically look at what it would cost to build these ditches with today's dollars. So all we're doing is taking the dollars that they used back in those days to come up with the assessments. And then I haven't dug into all the paperwork. I know Penny has given us copies of the original documents. And I haven't gone through those to see how much detail they have on how they came up with their costs. And I'm not dug through that.
Yeah, I have some.
But we would just put today's dollars to their quantities, and those type of things. Rob and I have had a conversation, we would look at drainage areas. So we've got better technology, we got LiDAR, we've got better mapping to identify these drainage areas and what actually comes into here. So it may add some areas, it may subtract some areas, but I think that we update it based on current LiDAR that we have. And then we've talked about on Sycamore that they kind of stopped it short with the subdivision originally. That needs to extend maybe up to at least Sycamore Road or maybe into the Conservation League up in there because there's a wet section of ditch that just lays and grows cattails and really needs to be maintained in there. And this is the time when we do these reassessments to add those sections and then possibly add property owners too. So getting the new numbers is kind of spelled out, I think, for the most part. Now, how you assess these, I know some counties look at acreage, they look at land use. There's a lot of different factors that kind of comes into play as far as how you use your factor. on this overall cost, how much of that they pay, but it really just gets divided with some type of a formula we develop amongst all the property owners that drain into that.
On Ralphie's and Fort Creek, it was originally based on, I believe it was an even assessment based on acres.
Acres.
On Sycamore Meadows and, the Cozing Plantation, even though there's water passing through those from outside of the subdivision, the assessment was limited to just the properties in the subdivision.
So when you say acreage, Rob, does that mean the total acreage that may affect that ditch or just the
Yes.
ditch acreage itself?
No, a total acreage that may affect it.
May affect the ditch, okay.
And when you're talking like Ralphie's ditch, the current cap, we're not allowed to have more than $3,600 in there. Well, $3,600 is
Doesn't go
by
very-
the time we try to mow it, bring it.
Doesn't pay for the gas you're
Right.
using to mow.
Exactly. And Fort
Yeah.
Creek is $4,680. So, and there's only $2,000 in that fund.
Do you know off the top of your head, like how much each one of those generates in a year through assessments? Do you have that?
Yes, I didn't pull that. I just pulled the balances, but I could get you the number of what it generated last
So in
year.
that case, we might have $3,600 in that account, but if we spend all that down, we don't generate $3,600 of revenue coming into that. in a
So
year.
have you prepared what it actually takes?
We haven't gotten to that point yet.
To maintain what we're talking about is. there
Right. I mean, we can put
preparation
numbers, we know what D'Angelo charges to spray.
involved?
And
Right,
like I say, my guys are mowing it, which tries to keep the cost down. If we actually had a contracted out with someone to mow it, it would be higher
Right, yeah.
than our guys doing it. So those numbers are easy to put together. The work is gonna be in, let's reevaluate these drainage areas, let's set up the assessments, let's see what it's worth. And then, there's a whole system of
Yeah.
public meetings and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah. And we're in the process of remapping. We already remapped, created a digital layer for the watershed for the Compton Ralphie's Ditch on Barnes Road. And we're in the process right now of doing the same for North Branch of Fort Creek. So, this won't mean anything to you guys. The LiDAR, watershed for North Branch and Fort Creek was only like 8 acres off from what they had used,
Oh, really?
which is incredibly
Yes,
close,
right.
incredibly close.
So Rob kind of approached me what this, we had the conversation, do we want to use the old drainage areas that they originally used and keep it consistent with that? Or should we use our new data?
I'd do so.
And I said, let's at least look at both of them, let's look at the new data and let's compare it. And that's what he was saying, that one of them was only 8 acres off of what the original map.
That's pretty good, and because, you're talking about
I don't know how many acres you're looking at.
1,400 acre watershed.
Yeah.
So that's.
Within 8 acres.
Well,
pretty good.
technology at the end of the day might protect us in the future.
Well, back in the day, you could, the thickness of the pencil line around the outside of the watershed when you were doing that and measuring it by hand,
So ironically, just last 2 days, I was at a drainage conference, in Columbus. And one of the speakers that came up and spoke is the county engineer for Auglaize County. Auglaize County is a northwestern county up there, flat as a pancake. Their entire county is covered with petition ditches. They have 400 miles of petition ditches. They have more petition ditch miles than they have roadway miles.
I was gonna
up
say.
there. And so for them, the importance of using new data is that for us, we're fortunate that as you look at these are all separate away from one another. But if someone petitions adjacent to one of these, and we have to go back and reevaluate, what we don't want is to end up with overlaps or gaps in where the drainage areas are. So that's why it's important, I think, to use current data. And then moving forward, if we get new petitions, we're using current LiDAR data, getting current accurate drainage areas, you'll avoid those overlaps and gaps that you may have, maybe using something like stuff.
it's a little bit easier on the projects. Oftentimes, and other counties that are doing this with subdivision drainage or subdivision stormwater management are doing essentially the same thing. Oftentimes, the assessment is just limited. I mean, the increase in cost in the construction is a result of the subdivision. So oftentimes, those maintenance assessments are just on the subdivision property. That's property boundaries. That's really easy to keep track of. This watershed stuff, where you've got properties changing hands within the watershed, starts to get a little bit more difficult. One thing, this can get to be it can get to be a big deal over time. We're a long ways from it, but if you look at Delaware County, for example, or Auglaize County, in those counties where they've got hundreds of projects, they have entire staffs, either within the Soil and Water District or the county engineer's office, that just do ditch maintenance.
Right.
In some instances, in some of those counties, they own the equipment to do the maintenance with, the boom mowers, the whatever. And that, the kind of the beauty of this program is, I mean, as it was conceived by the legislature decades ago, the properties that benefit are the properties that pay for that. So where they have those departments generally are funded from a little bit out of all of those assessments. Pay for the staff to do that. They pay for the equipment that has to be had to mow it. They, it's mostly self-funded. Now, there's some administrative cost, I'm sure, that comes out.
So you can throw something at me, but I want to ask this question.
Mhm.
Would it be a little more feasible to fund the townships that are involved in this and have them maintain these ditches instead of taking your manpower and your manpower to do that? Or is that a
I think the
possibility?
townships are less equipped to do the work.
Yeah.
So it's the equipment thing, not the manpower.
And less interested. We've approached Hilliard Township several times over the years, and we can do that now, actually. It doesn't matter who we pay contract with to do
Right.
that work.
Yeah.
We've approached Hilliard Township several times over the years, and, I think most of the time the townships are tapped out on time that they've got for their county
You're right,
road
guys.
people,
Yeah.
and they just like we just don't.
And some of it's a little bit of a safety issue too.
Yeah.
You're mowing on inclines and
Yeah,
embankments
sure.
and ditch in remote areas.
Yeah, some of those ditches are. pretty-
Sometimes it's a good idea to have a couple guys
Yeah.
out there just in
Yeah.
case something goes south.
Yeah, I've looked
And you don't
over
have-
in there on my Harley a couple times.
And I think ultimately, Barry, and to follow up with that, if you read the code for what it says, it puts the responsibility on the county
On the
engineer.
canyons.
The county engineer is responsible. I can subcontract that, like Rob said, I can go get a mowing company or somebody
Sure,
else, if
sure.
my crews can't do it, we're not set up. We typically haven't been set up to do it. Now, if we generated enough money in these funds, could our guys do it? Sure, but we'd have to get a longer reach arm mower and we gotta go buy equipment. Sometimes it's easier just to contract somebody.
Yeah, well,
We contracted with an adjacent landowner to mow Ford Creek 2 years, well, coming up on 2 years ago now, and once, and he was like, not again. I'm not."
So it's been difficult to find somebody to even do it. So,
And I assume getting these kind of cleaned up is important, because I would imagine we're gonna see more of these requests for petitions over time.
I think so. So I think there are two opportunities to see more of the petitions over time. One, just from if we see subdivision development, I think there's an opportunity to see more of them there.
Hmm.
And as you see more rural residential development in the areas of the county where things are less well drained, then there is the possibility that, somebody could be approaching the Soil and Water District or the county commissioners to say, hey, we need some drainage improvement done here.
mhm.
How do we get this started?
and
So,
keep in mind, it's called the petition ditch program. But it's not limited to ditches, like open ditches, like
Right.
most people have in their head. We can do enclosed pipe, we can do culverts. Those things can, and we tried to implement something along this line down in Hilliard Township, when a developer went in there and bought up a bunch of ground, divided up big lots. We had multiple meetings with their attorneys and our attorneys, and we lost the battle because we didn't have a leg to stand.
And you didn't have any zoning for.
We didn't
or
have
new.
anything that said that you had to do this.
Yeah,
And that's where. it
and
needs
that's
to
where
be
we came back
incorporated.
earlier.
now that's great.
Subdivisions.
Correct.
That's great job security for us later on down the line, right? Because, when those, rural property owners have drainage issues, and they will, then they come back to us for, assistance. So, but it would be nice to avoid that, I don't need that kind of job security.
Are we able to tap into the Muskingum Watershed grant program to help out on any of our ditches?
Not on our existing ditches.
And that brings up a good point. Any money that's raised from the property owners on each one of these ditches, so we've got 4 different accounts that we pull from for each one of these. That money that's collected for each one of those ditches can only be spent in those ditches. So we may have an excess of funds in maybe Sycamore Meadows, but we can't go out and spend that.
Can't move it around.
No, it has to go to the area that it was designated.
Is there a carryover with that money or is it one of those must spend?
Well, it's got a cap.
So, yeah.
You
so
can
there-
carry it once it's in, once you're at that cap,
There's a carryover sort of, but. not-
Yeah,
but it's low.
but yeah, we're trying to raise that cap.
Gotcha. Yes.
So I guess, so to the nuts and bolts of what do we need to do this year? North Branch of Ford Creek is our only ditch that this is an anniversary year for that. So that's the one that we really need to address this year. So we need to review the permanent assessment base. So that would be, probably a separate meeting with the commissioners once we have all the facts and figures together on exactly how many dollars was the base at, adjusted to in 1994. What do we need it to be now? Then on Cameron's advice, the commissioners would propose the changes to that assessment. You would have to notify the clerk notifies. The clerk notifies the landowners of the proposed changes. And then you would conduct a hearing on that. And then, if at the conclusion of that hearing, then you would certify those changes to the county auditor. And then that would be on the next tax roll follow. You hold your breath a little bit once you do that, because there is an appeals process. So, now what we did, and so this is always probably an option. What we did, if I recall correctly, what we did back in 94 was that we increased the permanent assessment base, which allowed us to increase the amount of money that we could carry in the account.
So it raised your cap.
It raised the cap, and if I remember correctly, at that time, we left the annual assessment alone. Whether that works now or not with the increase in inflation, I don't know, but I think that's what we did at that time to make it more palatable.
Yeah, I don't think the homeowners, you wouldn't think they would object to the raising of the cap because it doesn't increase their cost. Their fees
Right.
is probably gonna more.
Right.
The cap, if you increase the cap at the current rate, it would take you,
May take a long time to get any meaningful amount of money.
You may never reach the
you
cap,
never.
because we're spending it faster. than
Right,
it's coming.
exactly. Yeah.
That's something we have to look at.
So that's something that would have to be considered, but like I said, that's our process. We need to do that for North Branch and Ford Creek this year. We need to be paying closer attention as Chip and I were sorting through the 6-year anniversary language. My original question to him was, well, since we haven't done it at all, since we haven't had an increase at all since 1994, can we just do it anytime? Kind of knew what the answer was going to be. But he did his due diligence and he sorted through things and looked at records and he's like, no. You're married to that 6-year anniversary thing for each one of the projects. And so we've probably been remiss, over the years, we have not been regularly having hearings on these 6-year anniversary dates for these projects.
So once we get the ball rolling on this, we need to stay focused on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just has to be done by the end of the year or?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we would want to do this.
And do we know at North Branch, Ford Creek, do they have any land use, request changes? Are they looking at putting a subdivision? Is that going to increase, revenue to county? Or do you know what change of ownership, change of land use for that project?
No, so there are no, right now, that I am aware of, there are no significant changes in land use for most of that project. It's worth noting that the water from Sycamore Meadows also ends up in North Branch of Ford Creek.
Ford Creek.
Yeah. So, there's a little bit of a dual assessment going on there because those people were assessed for the subdivision itself.
Right.
But you're kind of in that area. There have been along Ralphie's Ditch. Yeah, that was the only thing, when Ralphie's Ditch was built, the only thing that was there was the golf course. And everything to the west of Barnes Road, well, even just a narrow strip along the east of Barnes Road was crop fields at that time. Now, I mean, everything up and down Barnes Road is houses, and the golf course is going away and going to be subdivided.
Yeah, like I said, I think, well, now that Intel is staggered, I'll put it that way, whether they ever rebound or not, who knows, but. I always thought that that part of Knox County will be the first growth area that was hit.
And you've seen that over the years too. I mean, if you think back, I mean, you know, I moved from Knox County in '85. And, you know, we would travel to Columbus regularly then. If you look at the changes from 30s, or well, between Westerville and
Centerburg.
yeah, I mean, it's creeping. It's always been creeping. this
Yeah.
way. It's always been creeping this way.
Yeah.
So those are the things we need to do. So that's to get you kind of up to speed.
And Rob and I will do the majority of the work, you know, all the nuts and bolts and putting the numbers together and looking at the drainage areas, that'll all come off. Since we'll present it to you, you know, let you know how we came up with the numbers, what we did, how the assessments were come up with, we'll make recommendations basically.
Do you have a time frame that you've established that when you would?
We have
get
not
back?
yet.
But like I said, Rob is already working on some drainage areas, so
Yeah.
it's not like we're sitting here doing nothing, we're doing pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But we just haven't really dove into this deep, to really put it all together.
And so actually Cameron will, it's all really his responsibility. I'm not sure.
That's why I'm not saying much. Rob's taking on it.
You guys-
Taking
So-
the lion's share.
Well, and so the reason, so why is the Soil and Water Conservation District even involved in this in Knox County? Two reasons. One, North Branch of Ford Creek was a petition to the Soil and Water that was a conservation works and improvement project. So that started through the Soil and Water Conservation District. Ralphie's Ditch, I believe, was a petition to the county commissioners, but at that time, the Soil and Water Conservation District and USDA did the design work for that ditch. So we were integral to, you know, those two projects. And the code does, one section of the code there does say that now we've just got a handshake agreement here in Knox County, okay? But it does, there is language in there that allows the county engineer or the county commissioners to have a formal agreement directly with the Soil and Water Conservation District to do much of this. Well, like I say, it's always just been this here in Knox County, and that's worked great for us for years. So not suggesting any changes, but that's why I'm sitting here too, is because we've had this handshake agreement for a long time, and our office was involved in the beginnings of two of those drainage projects. So that's your brief history.
Yeah. And it's probably when these things started out, they were primarily put in for agricultural purposes to drain ag fields, and that's Rob's wheelhouse there too, so he deals with farmers.
So it makes sense for us to be at least getting out and doing our tour of the Fort.
Yes.
Ditch.
Yeah, we do a kind of, you know, van or a couple of vehicles and do a driving tour each year.
Usually went to us good.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, so it's
thank you
nice.
for waiting past the ice.
Yes, well, and I mean, that's one of those things, we've approached this pretty informally over the years. But that's actually one of those things that's in the code that the commissioners shall do an inspection of them each year, so.
Well, I can tell you, All Glaze County, because they've got so many miles, they have actually purchased, I think they have 3 drones now. They actually fly their drive, and that's part of the new regulation. So Rob touched on it just a little bit. He mentioned 2021. That's when they actually went through and revised the petition ditch laws, changing these sections of code. And some of that stuff in the old language, commissioners had to go out there and had to walk 400 miles of, you know, of county ditch, which obviously everybody knew that just wasn't happening. So we felt like, let's update the language. Let's bring it into something that is doable. So they put language in there where you can use different types of survey equipment and a drone is one of those things. You can fly it and then just hit the high spots.
Is that something you would find beneficial? Because I mean,
These little
we do have a
petitions,
drone.
yeah, these little sections are, I mean, unless the commissioners want it, Andrew, you go out there and fly these things and just to have a documentation what's out there, but our ditches, Ford Creek is probably the biggest one that we deal with.
Yeah.
Really aren't that. I mean, one of them, you can stand at one end and look at the other end of it. It's not.
I know the one year we tried to drive the vehicle down there. It's pretty rough ride.
Yeah.
We always go ahead of our visit to make sure we cut all the trees out and fill in all the groundhog holes and stuff like that, before we get down there.
But we did take a van down there.
Yes.
Not, bolt terrain.
You know, there's, that was another one of those little changes they widened the maintenance easement area along the side of the ditches. I think we've only got 10 feet technically on well, we've got 10 feet on both sides of Ralphie's ditch and only on one side of North Ranch.
But when that law changed, that actually updated, there was no grandfather. Those are all 20 feet now. And the farmers will still farm.
Farm
10
up to,
feet,
farm
yeah.
up to 10 feet.
But we
A
haven't,
little closer than that in some.
we haven't broke it to them that, oh, by the way, the law changed, we got 20 feet now.
Right.
And it impacts all the ditches.
Well, and you know, there are good reasons for that. I mean, we have dipped out both of those ditches or sections of both of those ditches. And if you're working with a hoe, pulling material out, loading dump trucks or spreading it or whatever you're doing with it, it takes more space than 10 feet, you know, so that's one of those things.
And repairs, we've fixed some slip repairs, erosion, you know, because some of these things, once they start going, it starts moving. If you don't get on top of it and stop it, it will just continue to meander and move, and it just creates a real mess, so. It's important that we stay on top of that, and we've not done any of that work in-house with our crews. Most of the time, we got a local contractor we work with to go in and make the slip repairs or the erosion repairs, stabilize the banks.
There's one more, as I was reviewing the code on it, there's one other section that's kind of interesting in there. And we've only got one project where this would be the case. But there is a provision in there, and it had, a lot of these things have a sunset on them, you know, so they open a window up for something in the code, but if it doesn't happen within so many years, then the provision goes away. But this is one that's in there and hasn't gone away. There is a provision in there where landowners who had record of any project that was constructed prior to 1957 could come back to the county and petition to have those added on the maintenance now. Ford Creek Popper actually would fall into that category. They never have done that. That would be at that point in time, if that happens, then Cameron has to go out and inspect it and say, okay, it's good enough just as it is, or this has got to be fixed before we're gonna take over on maintenance on that. And so,
Yeah, that's what, yeah, since this is a petition, does the county engineer have to allow that to become a petition ditch? Or is the petition just them asking for you to assess or for you to look
They
at it?
petition the commissioners for maintenance, so it's really the commissioner's call.
Or how do they want to maintain?
I'm just a reference for you, but I throw my 2 cents in.
now, on new projects, on a petition for a new project, so let's just say we had 15 landowners down there in Centerburg, residential properties, drainage is terrible, they want to petition the county for a drain tile to come up through to provide subsurface drainage for lawns and septic systems and downspouts, you name it. It's just a petition. It's not a guaranteed thing. You could say no. I mean, you
So
can
how
go
many
through the whole
people-
petition, they can go through the whole process, and the county commissioners can say, no, we're not gonna do it.
So how many of these people think that there's no charge with the petition?
Well, when they first contact you, that's what they all think.
Yeah, they think you're just gonna fix the ditch or put a ditch in, right? I'm
Yeah.
assuming, yeah.
Yeah, when they first.
Thanks for
contact you.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then when you have your public hearings, obviously everybody that's gonna be impacted
Yeah.
gets called into that. So
yeah, and
you
then,
may have one owner that's got a burr in their saddle about some drainage issue
Yeah.
out there, but if everybody's not on board, that might be a situation, a
Right.
prime example where a petition is filed by a homeowner, and I think just one homeowner can
Yeah,
really
one
file a petition. So if that one homeowner files a petition and everybody gets together, these public meetings go, no, we don't want this, you would probably turn the petition.
Yeah,
down,
yeah,
you
turn
know?
it down.
Yeah, so,
But you could, I mean,
because everybody's gonna get assessed.
Yeah.
And that's where the benefit is when we redo this, and I get, nobody likes increased fees and that kind of stuff. Hopefully, the locals out there realize the benefit of having these ditches, that it improves the drainage of their property.
Well, I
And it
know
gives
my old
water
property,
someplace.
I'd like to have you guys mow the ditch that was in front of my house. Instead of me down there with the weed eater.
Just petition.
Yeah.
well, you know, so back in 1985, when I first started up here, you know, you still had enough older people, you know, that owned those properties. Well, they would say, well, that's a county ditch, you should be taken care of. Oh, I don't think it's a county ditch, you know, all I know about is North Branch, Fort Creek and Ralphie. And at that time, I didn't even know about this book. And so you would say, I don't think so. I don't think that was ever a county project. Well, now, come to find out that a lot of those were county projects. It's just that they weren't put on maintenance and,
You know, when I got into this, I went down to Rob's office and he shows me this book. Well, and I about had a heart attack because I'm like, I thought we had 4 and he's got, I don't know, like a whole book of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And
yeah.
he's like, no, the law changed. These basically were built
Yeah.
by the county. But at that point in time, it got turned back over to the homeowners. And so the maintenance responsibility never came back on the county.
Yeah. But it is an ingeniously devised program. It is very equitable. It does not, you know, it does not burden a taxpayer in Danville with a drainage improvement in Hillier Township. It is,
I'm sure
It is.
most people,
you know, it's a really equitable.
I'm sure most people involved I will speak for myself. I would like to see a dollar figure that's actually how it's affecting me on a dollar amount.
You know what a typical assessment is?
Well, some of like Rob said.
I'm saying
they're
the new
$100 a
going
year.
forward.
I think $100 a year. You have this.
So it's not an exorbitant amount of money.
But on the,
On Ford Creek,
yeah, Ford Creek is.
It's gonna
based
vary
on-
based on how many acres you.
yes, yes, because there's 122 parcels in Ford Creek that are affected.
Right.
So it is determined by the number of acres that each parcel has.
Yeah.
So looking at the list, I mean, one homeowner's could be $57.74 a year, where down here, this property owner only pays 76 cents a year. It's all
That's right.
dependent upon,
It's not
Variable.
like another big tax hike.
And it's fair across, if you own more acreage,
more
you're
you-
gonna pay
Yeah, the
more.
more you own, the more you pay.
Exactly,
I get it.
But yeah, on new petitions, we've got a real opportunity to address residential subdivision drainage, stormwater drainage over time with the program. I think that's,
But, yeah, and that's where a lot of people don't realize, when I talk to, Wood County or Lucas County, or talking to Delaware County, more of these urbanized counties around us, they're using petition ditches to take care of their subdivisions, their developments, the drain, the pipe, the structures, detention basins, and those types of things.
So I don't mean to eat your time up, but you struck a nerve way back early in this conversation.
Yeah.
Actually, when we talked about subdivisions
Mhm.
with, no language that says anything about how subdivisions should,
Well, we have language on
but
subdivisions.
it's outdated. right?
But some of it's outdated. I think it's more importantly, we're missing pieces of the puzzle like this. That's not in our subdivision regulations.
So how long has this conversation been going on with no resolution?
Well, I've been there 9 years,
So you've been talking about this for 9 years?
as a county engineer. So, but like I said, we don't control it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
What's been the hesitation to change it?
I don't,
There shouldn't be a
it's,
hesitation to change.
it says, redoing the subdivision regulations is about like updating the county comprehensive plan. It's
Yeah, very
like
fair.
mul-
Yeah, you just
multiple
don't
trips
set
to
that.
the dentist office and nobody.
it's a lot of public hearings.
But I would think in 9 years, there should have been some type of movement on that.
So, my experience, I started out in the private sector as a consulting engineer. So one of the first things that I would do when I'm working in a county, a different county in the state of Ohio, is I go to that county and I pull their subdivision regulations, because that tells me if I'm doing a sewer job or if I'm doing a subdivision job, whatever it may be, the rules and regulations for that county are in this book, and that's what I have to design things by. That that is, for me, going across the state, they're not that different from county to county, you know, so it's not like we're creating something that doesn't already exist somewhere else. You just gotta figure out what fits for your
So,
community.
Mr. Personal, Jason, I'll ask this question. Are they bulking that into a building code type thing? Is that the holdup
Yeah.
here?
I don't think so.
So they're not throwing it that way.
Has,
I think it's just been talked about, but.
Yeah.
Rob said it is the process, and I think
it
it's
just,
gotta, the process has to be started by RPC.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not like they don't exist. I mean, we've had, I think part of the thought is, well, they're there, you know, and when we've had subdivision regulations for decades. You know, and there was a kind of a big revision of them back.
2005, 12.
Yeah,
They've been
something like
updated
that.
a number of times.
Yeah, they've been updated a few times, but it's usually a long time in between updates. I mean, that's historically, it has been.
Here's what I found with Knox County subdivision regulations. The last, whoever put them together at the last point in time is that it seems like they went to a lot of adjacent counties, other counties, found something they liked. Let's just grab this and let's put this in here. Let's grab this and let's put this in here. The issue that I run in, people that probably use the subdivision regulations more than anybody else in this county is myself and probably Daryl. I don't know how much you really reference the subdivision regulations, because I review stormwater and I review developments and all that type of stuff, and I have to make sure they meet our regulations. So I know the subdivision regulations inside and out. The issue we have is that when they just pulled sections here and there and put them all in the book, guess what? Some sections don't agree with the other sections, and then you end up with gray areas, those types of things. So that's some of the, I guess that makes sense, Barry, that
Yeah.
some of the areas that just need to be cleaned up. It's not like we don't have them. and they don't
It
exist.
needs written correctly and
Is
correct.
it something that can be done in-house, or is there something that a planner needs to come in and help facilitate the
I
discussion?
would highly recommend in today's environment that you bring somebody in to help facilitate it, because they're gonna know all the new stuff. When you wanna talk about solar, when you wanna talk about wind farms, when you wanna talk about development of roadways, when you wanna talk about airspace, condominiums, PUDs, how are all these things, drainage. There's a lot of new nuances that necessarily weren't incorporated in 2012, 14, 15 years ago. And the people that do it on a regular basis, there's actually an individual that's been working with a lot of the townships, because I said on the land use committee, Rob sits on that committee. I think she's down around Cincinnati, is that correct, Rob?
Yeah.
She's been updating a lot of the township zoning regulations. And from what I see, because we review those, she's doing a pretty good job, pretty thorough job for the townships to bring their regulations up to speed. And I think Daryl has actually reached out to her to see if she'd be interested in doing an update to our subdivision regulations. So sitting down with someone like that would be, obviously the best first step is getting them up here and having a meeting with them and getting that ball rolling.
I didn't mean to drill you gentlemen. with
No,
questions.
no, that's okay. I think the hope, so the last two revisions to the subdivision regulations were done in-house and done largely with volunteer, volunteer labor. And it's just so hard. People are so busy.
Yeah, there's no way I would wanna sit down and try to tackle that and be correct
It's
with
really-
all the codes and everything.
And what's nice about a consultant is they see what's happening across the state of Ohio or in other communities. And it's like, well, you might.
Well, they've already
consider this.
experienced, so they should be
Exactly.
ahead of the curve.
Right,
when
let's
it
not,
comes.
let's not recreate the wheel. Let's see what somebody else has done. But it's gotta all marry. You need that one person to make sure everything kind of marries together. It doesn't
Yeah, it has to
create gray areas.
fit here too,
Yeah.
And that may be something, Barry, that the county.
Well, like I
need
say,
to help with the funding of
Yeah.
that, if you're gonna hire a consultant to come in and. do
well,
that
I mean,
with
it's not
RPC.
extensive as a comprehensive plan, but there's still some
Right.
money that'll have to be thrown. in.
And the good thing about the subdivision regulations, I don't see them as subjective as a comprehensive plan. They're more cut and dry. When you build a road, this is how much asphalt going we want, this is how much stone base we want, this is the type of drainage we want. It's a little more objective rather than subjective because we have standards that we build roads to and those types of things. Those things just need to be incorporated.
And one of the problems, one of the problems with our current set of subdivision regulations, prior to this last revision, the county stormwater regulations were a standalone document on their own, and then you had the subdivision regulations. Well, there was a thought at the time that, well, wouldn't it make more sense if that was all combined? And so that it was all just one document. Well, that kind of sort of didn't work out as smoothly as it would have been nice, because there were, you know, now we've got places where they contradict each other.
We got two different sections that talk about stormwater.
Yeah, and
In
so,
our regulations, and they don't agree with one.
yeah, it was a
And I'm the
good.
guy that has to approve it.
Right. Well, it's a big one you like. You know.
How's this feel?
Yeah. I like this one better than she did. But you know, I mean, it was a good idea. It was a good thought. In practice, it didn't work out quite as well as everybody had hoped, but
So I think Mr. Purcell asked, is there a time frame where you're trying to get this all moved forward? Yeah.
this. Yes, we need to kind of jump on this, as far as the drainage petition and reconsidering the assessment cap for North Branch Ford Creek. Yeah, this we need to get rolling, because at this point, the earliest it's gonna get changed will be for next year's, taxes. So we want to make sure that we kind of hop on that.
We put off spraying this year, but that's not something that I wanna do for 2 or 3 years, because once that woody vegetation gets established.
And then all of a sudden you're
You're not
sawing.
gonna kill,
it.
next thing out there is a chainsaw trying to cut
Sawing,
something down,
yeah.
it makes a lot more work.
Yeah, sawing ain't no fun,
Yep.
especially when you're standing in a ditch to do it.
So
Yeah,
I guess the bottom line is no action for you to take today on it, but just to get you up to speed on everything, let you know, we're gonna be coming back in the near future with numbers, revised acreages and that sort of stuff for.
and this isn't something that Rob and I just dreamt up, this is actually in our revised code, it's been in place for a while, but just like I said, when I came on board as county engineer, I knew nothing about petition ditches, that was all new game for me, so.
All of us in this room not having our hearings every 6-year anniversary date for these ditches is a little bit like not jumping on changing the subdivision regulations real quick. It's
Yeah.
stuff just kind of, sometimes it just, time slips by and you don't
Yeah.
like, wow. Like if you would have asked me, had it been 21 years since the last time we did revisited assessments on these ditches, I probably wouldn't have said no.
Well, I certainly help you guys. I certainly thank you guys for educating me
Yeah.
because apparently I wasn't educated whatsoever.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, there again, we review stuff, we make recommendations, but it's
Yeah.
you folks, the county commissioners are the ones who have to actually approve things and sign off on.
Yeah, and like Cameron said, you see some of these counties where it's a really big deal. I mean, it's a specialized program within the county.
Oh, All Glaze County, they probably got a staff of 6 or 8 guys that.
Well, 400 miles,
All they
I
do.
would think so. My gosh.
And they do all their own maintenance, they do all their own, it's basically a full-time job for them, that's all they do.
Delaware County's the same way.
And they got a little money over there.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
You guys coming in.
Appreciate it,
We
gentlemen.
will wait to hear back from you.
Yeah, Rob and I will have to put our heads together and try and get a schedule to put together and try and.
I'm impressed that you can actually carry that book. It looks like. Carrying it from here to water.
It's not full,
You should hold it up, because I don't think anyone can see besides us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And
Historical.
This- no, this is a county ditch record. And it was up here at the commissioner's office, but a number of years ago, they called me asking if I wanted it because they were cleaning out and it was going to be disposed of. And I was like, no, we can't get rid of that. We've gotta keep that around.
But for your own information, I have all the original road records in my office.
Seriously.
From 1820s, when roads were originally created. Now, they weren't Danville Amity Road back in those days. It was Spearman's Road or whoever petitioned, that's what the road name was. But
That's pretty neat.
same thing, you gotta be able to read cursive writing.
Yeah, it can be a chore to read some of it.
But we do have all those scanned in, and backed up electronically. That's something that we have tried to do when we come across these older books and these documents. Those original road records are the only thing that we got left. If that building burns down and it's gone, they're gone. So when I came on board, none of that had been scanned in. I said, we gotta get this digitally. So it's backed up now digitally. Justin down at the tax map office, he has records of that stuff. We have stuff at our office.
And we've got so much more opportunity with technology today. I mean, Nicole was the technician at our office that was doing she's the one working on the digital watersheds for Ralphie's and North Branch Ford Creek. You know, in the matter of, an hour or so, she probably had that watershed delineated. Well, in the 70s, when those projects were done, I mean, somebody from our office went out there. I mean, we had paper USGS maps, but that all had to be ground truth.
Yeah.
So you went out with black and white aerial photography and you went out with the USGS map and you walked all of those watershed boundaries to say, okay, and you probably took a hand level with you and took some shots to say, okay, was this water run this way or does it run this way?
So in the USGS maps, you might have what? 2 foot, 5 foot, 10 foot contour intervals.
Yep.
Where in Hilliard Township, a 10 foot contour interval can be from one side of the township to the other side of the township. There's not much slope across Hilliard Township.
Technology allows us to do a lot, and I'm sure as we go through this process that we're going to find probably some, even just updating the digital parcel files for within the watersheds as we do those intersects with the property boundaries and the watershed. I'm sure that we're gonna find some properties that are not being assessed that maybe should have been, and we're probably gonna find some properties that are being assessed that maybe shouldn't be. We're gonna
Before they
find,
did a lot split. So
Yep.
if you had 20 acres, Barry might have been assessed for that 20 acres. Well, he sold 10 acres off 5 years ago. So
Right.
technically, you should only be paying for 10 acres. The new owner of this other should be paying for 10 acres. They may not be paying any and you're paying all 20 still.
well, or maybe depending upon where the split was of the 10 acres, all of this 10 acres is there and none of this 10 acres. is there. So you see, it's.
Cleaning that up is a good thing to go through every 6 years, So, and to tie on to that, and just to give you guys a heads up from this drainage conference, apparently the state of Ohio is paying to have new LiDAR across the entire state of Ohio. They're doing it in 4 phases. We are actually in phase 1 of the LiDAR. Except for just the very southern part of Knox County. We hit a divide there. It probably won't be until like phase 4, but 90% of the north half or north portion of Knox County will be in this phase 1. Wolpert Engineering is doing the fly. They're collecting all the LiDAR data and that type of stuff. They're doing it for the state of Ohio. As far as I
Drive
know,
LiDAR.
Okay.
Can you do drive LiDAR?
it's a radar basically system that they use. They're flying over with planes, sending signals down through. I should probably know exactly what LiDAR stands for.
I can't give you the acronym.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's basically using type lasers and bouncing signals off the ground.
So
to
there's
get
a
elevations.
tracking mechanism?
Yeah, you're measuring the ground surface by bouncing a signal off of it and it's coming back
Gotcha.
up through.
It gives you
Like
and
a
it's
sonar,
pretty
like a
accurate.
sonar
Sonar,
system. You think of submarines and
Yeah,
that kind of
sonar.
stuff.
Mhm.
So they can throw a signal out there and it can detect that there's something out there.
Wow.
They're just flying over with a plane, throwing a signal down there. And they've got it so good now that they can get through trees and underbrush and that kind of stuff. Because otherwise, if it's just bouncing off the top of the trees, you got an elevation that's off by 30 feet.
Yeah.
So they fly typically when there's no leaves on, in the fall and that kind of thing. And then, it will pick up all your ground surface, all that gets reflected back up and it's collecting, I don't know how many millions of points. It's really detailed.
Wow, that's
stuff.
pretty wild.
It's very accurate.
And they're gonna process this, and this is all gonna go into some other programs we use, like Stream Stats and that kind of stuff. They're actually gonna have stuff updated. We're talking to, not to open another can of worms, but you talk to Mount Vernon, they're always concerned about floodplains and who's that stuff.
Yeah.
So now we've got better data than what was used in the 80s when they originally developed floodplains, that kind of stuff. Now is the federal government, FEMA, gonna say, we're gonna take this LiDAR data and we're gonna re-look at some of these floodplains and that kind of stuff. That would be a prime opportunity for them to do that. So like Rob said, technology's changing. We're getting a lot of more information out there that we can have access to, and a lot of stuff will be free to us. We won't have to pay for it.
Yeah,
Even better.
yeah.
It's even better.
Well, and that wasn't the
paid
case
for it.
30 years
Yeah,
ago.
I get it.
Some of this stuff,
Roundaboutly, we paid
you
for it.
paid
You're
for
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So 3 of the 4 drainage areas are in Hilliard County.
Here's
Same
Hilliard
thing.
Township, yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
Hilliard Township.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, so Hilliard Township by far is our flattest area of
Yeah.
the county. We have real drainage issues down there, getting water flow.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Knox County unique. You go to the eastern part and it's like, we're trying to slow water down because everything's on a hill. over there.
Welcome to West Virginia.
Appalachia over there, so. Very good.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you,
Thank
absolutely.
Appreciate your knowledge.
We'll be back.
All right, we'll go see the drainage ditch.
Yeah, we'll have to set up, we get some nice spring weather here and get things dried out a little bit. We'll have to do the tour on it.
Yes.
And, you know, when
You don't
the,
wanna wait too long, cause then you're.
the weeds get too high.
Weeds and ticks.
Yeah, I was gonna say the tick thing. I don't want any part of that.
Well,
That sweet spot.
Yeah.
it's not necessarily mandatory to get out of the vehicle to, you know,
That's true, yeah.
but
Hey,
So-
all those years in the military, I had this real phobia for bugs.
Yeah.
Like ticks, mosquitoes, yeah. Please.
all right, hey, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for bringing the book.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Take care, have a good day.
Yes, so you're running a little long, so I'll take a motion for adjournment
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
and we stand adjourned. Thank you.